sit in the middle, actually. You sit in the middle.
Sure.
There we are. We'll bring another chair on. And our panel, James Ehlers, James, where are you? If you'd like to take at the end, Managing Director from Atterbury Property Developments. Michael O'Malley.
Yes.
James, you go at the end.
James. Yeah.
Michael.
Yes.
Hello, good to see you.
Hi,
You
James.
sit next to James. Fergus. You sit next to me. And another chair. Do we have another chair? Yeah. Ah, here we go. You sit next to me, and you're a troublemaker, so you
There
can
we
sit
go.
there.
I'll be here.
Let's make sure it's all nice and even so you don't hit each other. Right. I am guessing that none of you on this panel believes that the African real estate opportunities are perceived. You all believe that they are real. Would you agree? Can we hear? Just sit. I'm not sure I could hear you. Is it switched on?
Hello?
Oh,
Yeah,
there we are.
it's
Yeah.
working.
So
Okay.
you believe it. Tell me about your experience to start with.
Well, my experience is the last 4 or 5 years working at Standard Bank. It's a bank which is in these countries. We're in 18 or 19 countries across Africa now. And we've funded real estate projects in pretty much all of those countries. We focused on a lot of the countries that have been talked about today. And physically, we've seen the reality there. We've seen shopping centers being built in Nigeria, Ghana. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
We've seen offices being built, we've invested, we've put debt funding into projects. It is, as Amelia says, a reality.
James, your experience.
Our experience is the opportunity is very real. I mean, we have developed and acquired malls in Africa, and we are busy running and managing them, and we are building more. And we're actually building a business around growing this portfolio in Africa.
Michael.
Likewise, our business is totally West Africa. We do nothing in South Africa. So our entire fund is set up to develop properties. We've got
The size of the fund?
256 million, and we've got about 100,000 square meters under construction at the moment.
Right. David, why then are we even debating real or perceived?
I'm not sure that we are debating real or perceived because I think we tangibly know it's real. What might be an issue, or no, what wouldn't be an issue, is there's a gross undersupply of retail, industrial, and in certain markets, office stock. So it's really a catch-up game to bring those stocks to the market. However, there are African countries where we're seeing huge rental declines. If we look at Angola as an example, there's an oversupply of office space, which nobody's touching on the fact that there are stories which are in reverse.
Amelia, touch on that, please.
I think I agree with David.
Do speak up, please. Sorry.
I agree with David. You would see that if you take Nairobi, for instance, property development there are a lot further progressed than they are in the likes of Lagos and other cities. And you see the rentals getting softer, and it's much harder to make opportunities work there than it is in the very undersupplied countries.
But what I'd like to point out there is they're getting softer, but softer from $120 per meter down to $80. Now, there's nothing wrong with $80 or $85 a meter per month paid annually in advance.
Compare that for the ignorant like myself to South Africa, which would be?
$120 you could compare rand to dollar basically for similar accommodation in South Africa. So it's 10 times more outside of South Africa for the same thing. In Angola, the other markets are all a little different. I mean, Nairobi is quite cheap by comparison to the rest of Africa, and Kampala even cheaper.
Which market, James, do you like?
Well, at this stage, our biggest investments are in Ghana, but we're invested in Mauritius, we invested in Zambia, we invested in Angola, and we're looking at investing in Mozambique. And all of those are different opportunities. But can I answer your question as to why we are talking about perceived or real? Because we've been having this discussion for years, and everybody talks about the data that's out there and this massive market. But if you look at the number of developers that are actually really building and developing in Africa, you can count them on one hand. So for some people, the perceived is the reality, or will become their reality. If you think you're going to go into Africa by jumping on the bandwagon, you're going to find it much more difficult.
You've been debating it for years, and the question is still being asked,
Yes.
which begs the question, why?
I think James has hit the nail on the head. There's a lack of developers going into Africa.
But why?
I mean, it needs bravery, it needs time, it needs resources. I mean, there's a lack of professional resources in Africa. I mean, all of us who actually work in the African space cross the same people day in, day out in the airports. We need a stronger base, as Amelia says, of professional resources.
But if this is the big gold rush that everybody says, why wouldn't people, Michael, be more into it?
It's damn difficult.
Hard.
Yeah.
It really is.
But they know it's difficult.
I think it's a question of low-hanging fruit. When the other markets were a lot better, it would be better to own real estate in London, New York, or Paris. Now there is a tangible, now you can get 25% IRRs in Africa. It's becoming more tangible. The sovereign risk is lower. The currency fluctuations are lower. The rents are dollar-based. So there's a lot of reason, but it's taken a long time to get into that market because previously those markets were locked up locally in those countries. They were locally owned, whereas now international investment is starting to look at them.
I think because the infrastructure in some of those cities are so poor, you can, in Lagos, you can have 2 meetings a day, and then you are lucky if the people that need to come to the second meeting actually get there in time, because it can easily take people 5 hours to drive
Right.
20 kilometers. And that is why it's hard for people to, you need to really want to do it.
I think the other thing which all of us know, and particularly in West Africa, is the costs involved in development. It's a very capital-intensive business. I mean, the costs of construction in West Africa are multiples of what they are in South Africa. I mean, so we need to be able to.
Why?
Why?
Because of the bribes that you have to pay?
No.
Well, so maybe Mike, you probably have a better view on
They
that.
all said that very quickly. Now, hang on. Let's go straight to that one now. In every list that we have seen, bribery, corruption, transparency is an issue. You've just said it yourself, didn't you, Amelia? You'd agree?
No, not totally.
You'd agree?
Sometimes,
You'd agree?
It is there, but there are ways of dealing with it.
yeah.
Yes. You'd agree?
Well, we develop in South Africa, and South Africa is part of Africa, so it's all the same.
Getting a straight yes or no on this one's rather difficult, but never mind, we'll persevere. Now, I suspect each one of you is going to tell me that you have nothing to do with that rather grubby business, correct?
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely.
Correct?
For sure.
Correct?
Yes.
Correct?
Absolutely.
So if you're the developers that are doing the development, and it's a cowboy's territory by your own admission, and if corruption and bribery is endemic, as you've suggested in your chart, and none of you are involved in it, who is?
No, I've got
Forgive
the
me,
answer.
am I missing something here, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes, Richard, I think you might be. And I think some of the clues, particularly in West Africa, if a project happens very quickly, by and large, it's because money has changed hands in an incorrect manner. But if you follow the procedures, and the procedures are carefully laid down, if you follow the procedures, your projects will take longer to achieve, but you can do so without getting involved in corruption.
Yes, I mean, Mike is spot on there. I mean, Mike and I, our entities are working together on a project which I think we started working on 4 years ago. So we've gone through a whole series of hoops over the last 4 years, but we've done it properly. Nothing has ever happened in an untoward fashion.
I'm not suggesting you hand over the brown paper envelope. But I am suggesting, in fact, I'm not suggesting, I'm saying downright, that you know it's been passed over by somebody at some point.
No, you're incorrect there, Richard. Yeah, in that particular deal, there's
Not in that particular deal, but as a general principle.
not as a general principle, sorry. I mean, you're trying to twist the words here. All of us sitting at this table here, or this stage today, are required to do business in the correct professional way. and we do it. You can do business in a professional, correct manner in Africa. The business which comes to you, and there is business which is ongoing in a corrupt fashion, you leave it. You let other people deal with it.
Look, I think there might be an element of corruption somewhere along the food chain. At this level, we're talking about major developments which are going on in African cities supported by the local and government of those countries. And possibly the construction company is having some kind of issue, or the supplier of the materials importing it through the port, they may be having corruption issues. I think this is the wrong platform for corruption as an issue. I think the platform here is getting the building up. And yes, so there may be corruption.
So,
but not at this level.
right, so let's talk about getting the building up. Let's talk about that. Start with you, James. What is the project, when a project comes along, and we'll take it from each of you, is when a project comes along, describe for our guests the sort of projects that you like the look of. What does it have to have? What does this sort of thing that sort of gets the juices flowing?
Well, what we've done is traditional retail malls between 20 and 55,000 square meters. And we build them to a world-class quality because that's what the customers want. It's really an upper-end mall, same as you would see here.
Right, but I need to know more than that, because with respect, that's just sort of the surface. I mean, you could build that mall in 1,001 different places. What I want to know from you is, what do you look for in the project?
We look for something that services the needs of the place that we are building it in. And really, the needs don't differ that much if you're talking about servicing a community with basic commodities.
What about yourself?
I think we're looking for sensible, non-egoistic projects. I mean, I think Amelia was right earlier on. In a limited degree, there are people who want to make a landmark on their particular cities. As a bank and as a funder, we need projects which are economic to build and have sustainable cash flows which we can fund going forward.
And taking that idea, Amelia, how many projects do you see, or any of you can jump in on this, how many projects do you see that you don't like the look of for one of those reasons like that? It doesn't make sense. It's an ego project.
Hundreds.
Tell me about
They
them.
are all over the place. And I think mainly it's because there hasn't really been an investment market created, particularly in West Africa. That is changing. Pension funds are now looking for investment-grade assets, and the likes of ourselves are producing those assets now. Prior to this, there was no offloading, and properties would eventually become trophies of individuals who had developed those particular properties for their own portfolios.
But I mean, I think that's because the market, with the intervention of people such as the guys here, is professionalizing. Previously what I saw was a lot of private individuals, landowners coming into our office who've been led by an architect. I mean, they're not professional developers. So the first thing they would do with their land is go and speak to the best architect who they've met in Cape Town, Johannesburg, London, New York. They'll be led by those guys, and the dream will arise.
Yeah.
You're nodding.
Yes, we are asset managers at first and foremost before we are developers. So we stick to our investment philosophy. We invest in assets that produce sustainable long-term returns, in quality real estate, so we don't build something where the escalators stop working in 3 years' time, in carefully selected economically growing nodes. And that's what gets the juices flowing. If it doesn't tick those boxes...
And how many projects do you see that come across your desk?
We probably see... We choose one from every 10 projects.
So it's a 10%.
And,
Would you all roughly agree on that same ratio?
Because we see lots of stuff that are not even a real project. I'll just give you one anecdotal example.
Please.
People, there's a hype around land value in Africa. So people that own land think that land is worth 5 times, 10 times more than what a project can afford. So sometimes they'll invite you to come and see the land, and you'll drive and drive and drive, and you get there, and they'll say, where is the land? And I say, it's still underwater, needs to be trenched. So those are the things that happen often. So you see many of those, and You have to be very clear.
Michael, this unrealistic expectation from the other side of the equation, I'm guessing you see a lot of that.
Yes, yes, plenty, plenty. But equally, you do get some genuinely quality opportunities. And there are enough of those to be able to reject the stupid ones pretty quickly and to move on to the ones that actually show a lot of promise.
So I was going to say the other thing which is happening now, I think it's only happening in the last 2 or 3 years, is that previously we were all very reactive. We actually waited for the opportunities to come to our table, and then we would look at them and we'd say yes or no. Now we're seeing some savvy developers going into Ghana, Nigeria, and actually saying, where are the opportunities? Let's go looking for them. Let's go and find the land, and let's talk to the right guys. So the approach of the developer and investor community is changing.
How fast do you perceive this change happening in these countries? Any one of you? In other words, how much? I mean, you're obviously all at the forefront of this and have been for many years. Everybody else is now spotting this gravy train, or what they perceive as a gravy train, and is jumping on board. How fast can this become a bubble?
No, it's going to take a very, very long time for it to become a bubble. The saturation point, as we pointed out in terms of your presentation, for retail space is unlimited. What can happen is that there can be too concentrated a development. So retail, 6 malls can go up in one street as opposed to 6 suburbs, and in a place like Lagos. And what you do see is fragmented arrangements where various developers are working on projects, oblivious of each other's projects in that proximity, which is one of the things that happened in Angola. And I think one has to be very cautious in the market. One has to see that you have cornered the market, that you bring in the prime product to the market, and that it's sustainable for the long run.
You have to keep a you have to keep a pretty strong, tight rein on the project. More so than you would say in South Africa. Would you agree?
I mean, it's probably
Yes.
better for Mike or James to talk
Tell
about.
us about.
Absolutely, yes.
Tell us the difference between, say, in country and out of country.
Well, I think the way business is done here is you have your office, you have your team, the site is within close proximity, you can go there every day. It is no different outside of the borders of South Africa. Our business model is to create offices, populate them with competent people, and we run our business from the cities that we operate in. We do not do it remotely. I've lived in Nigeria for 5 years. We have our businesses set up and run from the countries.
James,
Can I answer your first question?
Which
I think this one. I think the markets are extremely thin. They are not this massive, endless source of retail development opportunity. Because although there are many people in these countries, you can develop many of them if you exclude Lagos, because Lagos keeps getting mentioned and it's a big city with 20 million people. But many of the capital cities in Africa are not that big. Their markets are not that deep. So those cities can handle maybe 2 or 3 big malls and 1 or 2 sort of smaller 10 to 15,000 square meter centers. And then that market is fairly covered. So it is possible that developers jump into where they perceive low-hanging fruit to be and can overdevelop a city quite quickly. And Lusaka is a prime example of that.
where? Sorry?
Lusaka.
Lusaka. What about on the office side, or the industrial side, or the other
The office,
commercial real estate sector? I mean, we talk a lot about retail, but there's only so many shopping malls and only so many that you can put up even in these places.
yeah, the office space is more risky than the shopping center space, because if you build a good, strong shopping center in a good location, it's more difficult to replicate that. If you build offices, people can move office to office more easily. So you need to provide good quality, well thought through office accommodation if you want to keep tenants.
But there is huge demand. So we find, well, in Nigeria, 150, 160 million people, not one A-grade office in the entire country. Ghana, you've got whatever it is, 17, 18 million people, and we're building the first A-grade office in Ghana. So
Now, does that suggest in both of those places an opportunity
Yes.
or a bloody good reason why nobody's done it before, and stay as far away as you possibly can before you lose your
Well,
shirt?
the barriers to entry are very high wherever you're developing in West Africa. So you have to understand that. If you've got anger management issues, as a developer or an investor, don't go there because you'll be tested to the nth degree.
Tell me about some of the testing moments that you've had.
Deals change, and I think, I don't know, it might have been Jeff Seidel who was mentioning it, and we have a relationship with his company up there. But everything changes. It doesn't matter how many sets of lawyers you've got on every deal. It doesn't matter how much experience you've had, how long you've lived there, who you know, what you're doing. Every day something will be totally unexpected and take you unawares. And it's your ability to deal with that that is the measure of your potential success.
I'm coming back to your earlier question. I mean, what are the reasons why there's this opportunity?
Right.
For many decades, there's been underinvestment in a lot of these cities. Some more than others. I mean, Nairobi is quite developed on the office front, but if you look at Lagos, Accra, decades of underinvestment, and a lot of that is because people didn't have confidence in those countries. It does need foreign capital to come in to spearhead these projects. So decades of underinvestment means now that there's decades of buildings which are obsolete effectively. So now is the opportunity in certain markets to get in there and renew that stock.
Why would you want the headache, the heartache, and the ball-breaking work of doing this with all the risks that's involved versus South Africa?
Returns are better. There is limited competition because of the barriers to entry. It is difficult to establish networks, but once you've done it, you've set up those networks for a long, long time.
I mean, a touch of masochism here.
And I think there's also another factor, which is that there's very strong demand from occupiers or tenants, which is a word we still use here. And that drives the investment philosophy into these markets.
Richard, we have large portfolios in South Africa, very big ones. And one of the most important things in investing is to continuously look for opportunities to drive returns. Africa is that opportunity. You just have to make sure you manage those risks properly and that you are in there for the long term. If you are a speculative short-term developer, not the place for you to be. But if you have sticky money that can hang around for a long time, that's why sovereign wealth funds like it, because they have longer investment time frames. And our South African institutions that has got big investment portfolios here in South Africa, they see the benefit of investing in Africa. And as the investment world is after responsible investing opportunities, there's no better to get it than in Africa.
If anyone has a question, anybody want to join? Oh, Lord, it's him again. I hope it's not going to be a backroom president. Right. Let's... just shout.
Yeah, I just wanted to check. I mean, firstly, we would expect no less from our members in terms of the bribery situation. So I commend you for the responses we got from you. Because as our members, we certainly expect no less. But if that is the case, and none of you are following that route, surely the time it takes to bring those developments to the fore must be affecting the returns that you're all looking out for. I mean, and like I said, we commend you for not going bribery route, but it means you're spending 2 years longer than you need to, and surely that must affect those returns.
And that's absolutely fine.
Well,
No,
maybe I
let-
could
let's finish. Carry on, and then we'll come
I
to you.
say, we'd rather take longer, do it properly, go through the right channels, not break any rules, don't take any bribes, than go the short-term route, because that year or 18 months that you save up front, it's going to come and back you at the back end in multiples.
It is not entirely necessary to put a lot of money out the door until you get your planning approvals. So you can limit your expenditure on a particular project up to a point where you've de-risked it sufficiently for the bulk of your equity to come in.
I mean, is it actually any different from South Africa or any other country? I mean, my experience from Europe is to put a shopping center deal together and get a deal from site identification through to completion could be 5-7 years. I don't see a huge difference in Africa.
Right.
This is more a question for Amelia, maybe. She mentioned in her talk the question of security of tenure. As a generalization, what is the cadasters like? Are there reliable cadasters in most of these countries? In other words, land registers?
In some countries, they are better than others. So some it's easier to get. So the tenure is normally leasehold, either 50 years or 99 years. In East Africa, it's easier to find, the registries are more up to date. In West Africa, it's a little bit more of a problem. But therefore, it's important to make sure that you're never more than one step removed from the landowner. So don't have an in-between that tells you he's got an option with some cousin who has the land, who the land belongs to.
Have any of you come unstuck? Have any of you actually come unstuck on this land tenure question?
Yes, often.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Land claims can arise at any time. And there's, I think, Louis, are you in the audience somewhere? We share a development in Lagos, and a land claim popped up upon completion of the asset. So once we developed it, tenanted it, we'd opened the center, a land claim came in. So again, you will be surprised at every turn, and it doesn't matter how thorough you are, you'll have a pleasant or unpleasant surprise somewhere.
What is the feeling around the table about the DRC, perhaps Kinshasa to be specific, in terms of retail development opportunities?
I didn't get that.
Sorry.
The
Can you
DRC, and particularly Kinshasa, about retail development. What is your feeling on that?
We're very enthusiastic about it. I am, but unfortunately, I can't get too much support from others. But there are huge opportunities in the DRC, Kinshasa, Lubumbashi, and I think it's a relatively safe opportunity. But there isn't enough support from the development industry for us to go in there yet.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think it's also a challenging funding environment. I mean, real estate needs debt and equity, and the debt for a real estate project needs to be medium to long term. I know for us that's a struggle in DRC.
As we come to the end here, I want to we've talked a lot about South Africa, a lot about the European situation, and everybody in the room seems to accept that the rest of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, is a place where they've got to be at some point in the future, that this is, quote, the next big thing. James, start with you. How long before this market becomes safer and less risky?
The market is becoming safer and less risky day by day. It has changed over the last 10 years dramatically. So I think as long as we believe that Africa is not going backwards, this market will continue to grow, and it will normalize in terms of all of the fundamentals.
But give me a better timescale on when you believe this market starts to become less of the Wild West, the cowboy territory.
The cowboy territories are country for country. I mean, there's 17 countries in Africa which are conflict zones. There's certain countries that are already there, and there's certain countries that are nowhere near there. So you can't see Africa as one thing. You need to look at every single country on its own merit and decide whether this is a cowboy country or not.
I think, Richard, the financial markets are already telling us which are the more stable countries. I mean, the Ghanaians issued a Eurobond a year or so ago. It was way oversubscribed. Mm-hmm. The Moody's ratings, I think Nigeria got an upgrade recently as well. There's enough specialized research and analysis to tell us how the political stability is feeding through into these countries. Then we can work off that platform.
And are you ready now for the competition of the other developers when they start coming in?
We would love them to come in. I mean, I'm from a funding entity. We'd love them to come in. The biggest challenge is the capital to drive all this. I mean, there's pools of capital available, but we need more and more to come in. We need, the development foundations to understand that real estate is infrastructure in a lot of these countries and put their weight behind it as well. I mean, I think a lot of the DFIs we talk to have a negative perception of real estate. It really is infrastructure in Africa.
I also think that the developers are driving the market, but it's also the tenants that drive the market. There's another party who wants to be there, and they're the ones who are paying the rent. So it's important to follow that market as well. But I mean, within countries, there's cities you wouldn't go to. So in Nigeria, you'd go to Lagos, but not Port Harcourt, or you wouldn't go to Kano. From time to time. I mean, the issues are well documented in some of these cities.
We can talk about that later.
My final question to each of you. Anybody in here who is thinking of dipping their toe into this market that has not been in it so far, either with a fund or with a developer, in any shape or form, the one piece of advice that you would give them, the one piece of practical advice you would give them? Start with you, sir.
Go local. I think Amelia said it earlier on. You need a partner on the ground, and you need to trust that partner.
A partner that you trust.
Take as much time as you need to do your homework and make sure that what you're bringing to the market is the right thing and that all the documentation is tied up correctly.
That was 3 things.
I rolled it into one.
You're allowed to. All right, so yours was...
Go local.
Go and have a look. Yours was dot the I's and cross the T's.
Get a culture translator before you go there.
Get a culture translator.
Somebody can explain to you what you need to do when you are there. How do you deal with the people in that country? What's the do's and the don'ts? And make sure you understand that and you're willing to practice that when you go there.
Sir.
Be patient and stay calm.
If you want to expand your business into Africa, commit to the decision.
Sorry?
Commit to the decision. Don't dip your toe in because you will fail. Commit to the decision and you can make a success.
Yeah, but you only hang on. You only commit to your decision after you've done all that lot.
You do that once you've committed.
You commit first.
You commit first.
Oh, so you want to jump in before you've gone to look, you've dotted the I's, you've checked the culture, and you've stayed calm.
That's commitment. You commit to that. You do it properly.
So you think you should do all, you commit, you're going to do it first. You don't want any here todays, gone tomorrows.
Well, we've done it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the advice, should you choose your mission, should you choose to accept it, go and look.
No, sorry. Go local, get a good partner.
Yeah. Oh, he's changed it. No,
I didn't change it. You changed it.
Be flexible.
Keep going, yeah.
Go local and get a good partner, which probably means going looking.
Thank you.
Dotting the I's and making sure nothing is left behind. Understand the culture. Be patient and stay calm. And finally,
Jump in.
jump in with both feet. Ladies and gentlemen, the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.